In the 1980s, they were one of the biggest rock bands, with hits like Here I Go Again and Is This Love filling stadiums with people. But Whitesnake was falling apart on the inside, even with all the fame and screaming fans. A lot of group changes, ego clashes, and the crushing weight of fame broke the band apart. At age 71, lead singer David Coverdale finally said it wasn't going to work out. What in the world made one of rock's most powerful voices watch his own band fall apart? David Coverdale's story starts before the one about Whitesnake. Coverdale was the lead singer of the famous band Deep Purple in the mid-1970s. When the band broke up, Coverdale was left to start over. In 1978, he started Whitesnake, which was first meant to be a blues rock band because he loved soulful singing and heavy guitar riffs. Some of the best British musicians, like guitarist Bernie Marsden and bassist Neil Murray, were in the early group. Together, they made a sound that was a mix of raw blues and hard rock power. Like Ready and Willing and Come and Get It Made. Whitesnake is a force that is growing in Europe. But they didn't really make it in America until the middle of the 1980s. The turning point was the 1987 album Whitesnake, which was named after the band. With hit songs like Here I Go Again and Is This Love, the album went multi-platinum and made Coverdale and the band famous. Their music videos were all over MTV. In the Here I Go Again video, Coverdale's then-wife Toni Kitten danced across the hoods of cars, which became a pop culture icon. But there was a cost to it. Fame came with stress. Bigger trips, shows, and hits are what people want. Also, as Whitesnake's fame grew, the band started to fall apart. Behind the scenes, Whitesnake was more like a group of people coming and going like a moving door. Coverdale was the band's soul and lead singer. But it looked like almost every other job was temporary. A crazy number of guitarists, drummers, and bass players came and went. This steady turnover made things unstable. A lot of the time, musicians fought over creative direction, pay, and praise. Some people thought Coverdale was too powerful as the only person who could make decisions. The band that made Whitesnake's biggest hits was breaking up by the late 1980s. Being famous around the world made things worse. It was hard to keep up with tour dates, and the business needed follow-up hits to match their big hits. In later interviews, Coverdale himself said that it got too stressful to handle all the egos and keep the band's energy going. Fans and reviewers started to notice when the people on stage changed every year. Whitesnake, was it really a band, or was Coverdale just playing with whoever was available? The reputation for having a revolving door would follow them around, and it would lead to the fall that Coverdale would eventually accept. Whitesnake was famous and successful by the end of the 1980s. Their 1987 record with the same name sold more than 8 million copies in the US alone. The band played huge venues on the Slip of the Tongue tour. From the outside, it looked like every rock band's dream come true. Things were falling apart on the inside, though. Coverdale had trouble singing and had to have surgery to fix his throat. At the same time, the list for Revolving Door was nearly full. Guitarist John Sykes was fired before the band's biggest moment of success, even though he helped write a lot of the 1987 record. Later, Steve Vai was brought in to replace him during the Slip of the Tongue period. He brought a flashy style that didn't fit with the band's bluesy roots. Everyone was under a lot of stress because they had to repeat their success. Years later, Coverdale said, "I was surrounded by great musicians, but we weren't a band anymore. We were a business." What began as a tight blues rock band had grown into a brand, and Coverdale was responsible for everything. That moment of clarity was a turning point. Whitesnake wasn't just tired of his job. It was falling apart because of how well it had done. As the 1990s started, Whitesnake could no longer hide his problems. Fans began to doubt the band's security because of Coverdale's health issues and the constant lineup changes. Some people said they cared more about how they looked than the music, pointing to MTV's flashy videos and the media's constant attention on Coverdale's friendship with Tony Kayan. Artists' egos clashed, but so did those of managers and record bosses. Coverdale had a hard time balancing creative freedom with commercial standards because of the huge demand for hits that could fill arenas. The group's once famous chemistry had broken down. In its place were business talks, fights over royalties, and personal rivalries. By 1991, the band had broken up. After taking a step back, Coverdale said, "I had to walk away before it destroyed me completely." The fall didn't happen all at once in a big bang, but over time. Years of being tired, personalities clashing, and not being able to keep up success at the top level led to this. It broke the hearts of fans who had seen Whitesnake rise to fame. The band that once promised rock immortality had broken up because it was too heavy. When Whitesnake broke up in the early 1990s, it was a shock to both the band and its fans. The sudden silence was shocking for the millions of people who loved the songs "Here I Go Again" and "Is This Love?" They stopped going on arena trips, and the people who had become associated with the band moved on to other projects. Critics didn't wait to point the finger. Many people said that David Coverdale was more like a CEO than a bandmate in Whitesnake, making the band a one-man show. Others thought that the band would fail because they were trying to be popular at a time when grunge was becoming more popular and glam metal was becoming less popular. Coverdale's life was changed in very personal ways. His marriage to Toni Katian, who was a big part of the band's MTV fame, ended in a very public split. His health was also still bad, and he had to rethink not only his job but also his whole way of life. Fans, on the other hand, never let go completely. People still wanted Whitesnake's music even after they broke up. The hits were played on the radio. For many, Whitesnake's fall only added to the story. They were a band that flew too close to the sun and went out in a spectacular way. David Coverdale became more open about why Whitesnake broke up as time went on. He said it was never just one thing when he was 71 years old. It was a storm of egos, lineup changes all the time, and the impossible job of staying successful at the top. He thought about how it stopped being fun. And there's no point when the fun is gone. Coverdale's reputation was safe even after the collapse. He sometimes brought Whitesnake back with new teams, showing that the name still had a lot of power. It was fun to go on tours in the 2000s and 2010 with a group that wasn't quite as good as it used to be. When I think about it now, Whitesnake's story sounds like a typical rock tragedy. It's brilliant, powerful, and can't last. While they were at their best, they summed up the 1980s excess. They had stadium shows, flashy videos, platinum records, and a lead singer who stole the show. But it was that same excess that brought them down. The constant need for bigger success took away the fun of making music, and the band's lineup changes broke down any sense of unity. At age 71, David Coverdale's honesty shows the human side of the story. Behind the leather coats and loud crowds was a man who was under a lot of stress and had to face the fact that the band he had built wouldn't last forever. His thoughts don't show anger, but acceptance. Whitesnake gave the world songs that will never be forgotten, and Coverdale gave the world both fame and sadness. The band's breakup didn't erase their impact in the end. It might have even made it stronger. It's both a warning about what can happen when fame gets too big to carry and a love letter to music that still rings true today. Thanks for seeing. Visit this link to see another movie, and don't forget to join our channel.